So the cutting edge of diversity work is really around inclusion and belonging. I'm going to start with what we call the levels of inclusion. And there's different types of inclusions and inclusionary behaviors. And I want you to think about it this way. As I said, diversity doesn't necessarily lead to productivity. It can, it should, but only when we have the ability to manage disagreements, that we encourage good communication and collaboration, when we train people how to have good emotional intelligence and how to work with others and have difficult conversations. And all of that is part of the inclusion work, right? So diversity doesn't automatically lead to good outcomes. It only does it through inclusive behaviors. So a diverse organization by definition is not always going to be good or better. But a diverse organization can be better, can have good productivity and outputs and all those things when they have inclusionary practices. That is where the focus needs to be in this day and age. So 5 different types of inclusion. They call them the levels of inclusion. Number 1 is the community-based inclusion or social inclusion, feeling like you belong socially. So when I do my diversity training, I talk to people about this. It's like, let's say we decide, today after work, we're all going to go out for drinks. Somebody this afternoon said, you know what, let's all go hang out and go to the happy hour downstairs in our building and go hang out and have some drinks and have fun. And that sounds great because everybody's included, right? That's inclusion. Except Sarah can't go because she has to pick up her kids at childcare. And Peter can't go because his mom needs to be taken to the grocery store. And Sally can't go because she has to take her dog to the vet. So at the last minute, people can't go, right? Not everybody can go. And that sounds fine. So we say, don't worry, next time you can come next time. We'll make sure we plan it again another time and you'll be able to go then. And the same thing happens, rinse and repeat, right? I say, next week happens, and we're like, hey, how about if we do happy hour again? And the same problem exists for those 3 individuals. Somebody still needs to pick up the kids from daycare. Somebody's mom still needs to go to the grocery store. Somebody's dog needs to go to the vet. So we've got a problem now because social inclusion is about making sure that we are not only including everybody, but we're also investigating who doesn't come, who is not showing up, who is not here, and who is not seeing these things. So inclusion needs to not only look at who is participating, but look at who consistently doesn't participate and why. You might say, well, it's their choice. Well, sure. In some instances, it is their choice. And then for some instances, people are like, I don't drink. I don't want to go to happy hour. I'm fine. I'm just going to go home. I don't care. And that's completely their right. But they would have the ability to go if they wanted to. But for these others, they want to participate, but they feel like they can't because their unique needs aren't being considered. How do we manage that? All you need to do is plan it in advance. All you need to do is say, next week on Thursday, we're going to happy hour. So can you get somebody else to pick up your kids at daycare? Can you go grocery shopping with your mom a day earlier? Can you get the dog or the cat to the vet, normal, whatever, right? I mean, whatever the issue is that's inhibiting somebody from regularly participating, we are planning it in advance so they have the opportunity to make adjustments. I have a friendship group, right? And only one of us has school-age kids at this point. Mine are older and I can come and go as I need to, right? But this one friend has school-age kids and she only has them part-time. So because of that, right, because of, kids splitting time between 2 parents' homes, they are not always available when the rest of us want to go do something. So what we try to do is say, when are you available? Can we plan an event for those times when you are available? And so we make sure she feels included, that she is a part of the group. Even if she can't come on days when she has her kids, we plan things for days when she doesn't have her kids. And this is what we mean by social inclusion. People need to feel like they're a part of the group and making sure that you're doing something that everybody has the opportunity to participate in. But let's talk also one more thing about the individual who says, well, I don't want to go because I don't drink. Can we plan a different social event that doesn't include alcohol? Sure we can. Do we have to do this every week? No, but maybe once a month we do something like going bowling or going to, going to the botanical gardens or something like that we do as a group together, right? And that person doesn't feel pressure to drink. They can be a part of the group. They can do something with the group when they are so inclined to do so. It doesn't feel like it has to be alcohol based. My point in saying all of this is recognizing people don't participate in these things for a whole host of reasons, and it is not enough to just say, well, everybody was invited. We have to recognize why people turn us down and recognize that sometimes it's because they can't change their plans at the last minute, or they are not allowed to do certain things or physically can't do certain things. So mixing up your social get-togethers is a helpful way for everybody to feel like they are included, right? Next is emotional inclusion. And a lot of organizations really have toxic emotional cultures. And it's important that we make sure people feel like they can express what is important to them, that they can be authentic in an emotional way. And understand that when we talk about authenticity, authenticity has two dimensions. It has a um, um, and the most important one is sort of relational authenticity, right? One is like personal authenticity. I can be myself, but also relational in that I can express my emotions as I want to, or as is authentic to me. So I need to be able to communicate with someone, to be able to say, that doesn't feel good, or that feels unsafe, or that doesn't feel nice or fair, and being able to be authentic in that expression of emotions. And people have the right to be able to express their authentic emotions. And we need to give them space to be able to do that. So when we don't give them space to do that, then the probability of them not sharing anything and locking themselves down and excluding themselves um, is going to be pretty high. So we have to have a culture that cultivates authentic expression of emotions. I'm not talking about going off the deep end, but being able to say, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm concerned, I'm worried, and being able to put words to it. I don't mean saying I'm angry and then yelling and screaming at everybody. It's about saying I'm really angry about this and I'm struggling with how to respond. And you can say it in a maybe slightly strained tone, but it's about allowing an individual to express who they are in a really important way. So we need to see more of that in an organization. Intellectual inclusion is about when someone comes to the table and says, hey, I've got a great idea and I would like to be able to share my thoughts on this. And they share their thoughts and everybody's like, oh no, we're not going to do that. That's not the way we do things here. And then we move on and we continue to do things the old way. And the first time they might say, well, okay, I guess that's not going to work. But the next time comes and it's like, oh, how about I've got this pretty good idea, and everybody in the organization's like, oh no, that'll never work, and no, we can't do that. How many more times do you think that individual is going to offer good, unique, intellectual ideas? It's one thing to say, well, yes, we have tried that and it really didn't work, but it's another thing to just dismiss it outright. So this is a form of a microaggression. We often see this in organizations where we ignore the intellectual contributions of others other than the majority group. And you may have heard the term mansplaining, right? Where a woman says something and she gets dismissed, and a man says something and everybody goes, what a great idea. I've seen this happen to me multiple times, right? Somebody else has the idea and it's awesome, but if I bring it up, everybody thinks it's a stupid idea. Doesn't matter, right? So intellectual inclusion is about giving weight and credence to all intellectual contributions and giving credit where credit is due, right? Whether, no matter who came up with the idea, they should get credit for coming up with that idea and valued for that. The next is contemplation or spiritual inclusion. And spiritual inclusion is not about religion necessarily. Of course, it could be, because obviously we want to have freedom to express our spirituality in any way that we choose to. But what we're really getting at here is the ability to be able to have the ability to pursue meaning and purpose in our lives. And what is meaningful and purposeful to me is not necessarily going to be meaningful and purposeful to you. So our goal is to make sure that we give everybody the opportunity to pursue what's meaningful for them. When we get to the section on development and employee development, that's a big part of that, is when an employee comes to you and says, I would really like to learn this thing, and I'd like to see if this is something that I might like to do and learn more about. We don't shut them down. We should encourage that curiosity and give them opportunities to learn and explore when it's possible. So giving credence to someone's desires to pursue certain things, to find what's meaningful for them, that's our goal with spiritual inclusion. And then lastly is comprehensive inclusion. And this is where, when the whole person, the whole package is considered and is valued. Like you can bring your whole self here and you are valued for what you bring to the table. And where you feel like all aspects of you are accepted and welcomed and valued. When I first came to work at SIUE, I had not outed myself as a lesbian to the dean's suite at that time. But unfortunately, my partner had a health issue and a health concern. And this was way back in 2006 when we couldn't get married. And there weren't even, partnerships, domestic partnerships available in terms of, those kinds of committed legal agreements. So we were at odds, right? Because I'm not legally married to her. We're not legally related to each other. But when she has a health crisis, I needed to be with her. And so I went into my dean's office and I said, I have an issue. I know I'm supposed to be at these events over the next couple of weeks, but I can't be there. And here's the reason why. My significant other had a stroke, and the first person they said right away, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. And I said, yes, thank you. And she is in the hospital in this location, and I need to be there with her. And I had to stop for a second, because after I said that, I didn't know how the dean was going to respond. And he turned around and he said, take care of your family. And he let me define my family as I needed to. So I was accepted for my intellectual contributions, to be socially included, to allow the authentic expression of the emotions that I had from this sad event of my partner being sick. And then, being able to be who I am authentically, no matter what, and know that it was accepted by SIUE in its entirety, was huge. So that comprehensive inclusion is such an important aspect, because that engages me, that helps me to feel like the company cares about me. I'm more likely now to be more productive, to put in extra effort, to do all the things that I need to do. I will strive to be better because the company cares and because I know we could all benefit from that. So that's the goal. Continuing the discussion on inclusion and belongingness, there are 7 pillars of inclusion that the organization should think about beyond those levels of inclusion and from the previous slide. Number 1 is making sure everybody has access, right? Whether that's social inclusion or spiritual inclusion, pursuit of meaningful work, et cetera, but making sure everybody has access, and that we are supporting a good working attitude, and that the attitude of the company culture is about accepting the individuals for who they are and giving them space to do the work that they want to do. Giving them choices and not feeling like they have to be pigeonholed to do a certain thing in a certain way, that people have choices, and that they have options available to them. We want to make sure that there are good partnerships, and so that we're encouraging people to work together and to collaborate. We want to make sure there's good communication. We want to make sure that we have not only a good policy, but a culture or an attitude to support those policies. And we need to create opportunities for everybody. So if an organization focuses on those 7 pillars of inclusion, while considering the different levels of inclusion and the different categories in which we should be thinking about inclusion. It isn't enough to just say inclusion is just social. It's not. It's more than that, right? But these are the things that we need to do to make sure everybody has access, make sure that there's good attitudes out there in terms of dealing with different people, that people have choices about how they want to go about doing things, that there's good partnerships, good communication, good solid policies and cultures to support those, and opportunities for everybody. That's how we get good inclusion and belongingness in the workplace. Moving on to belongingness, remember, inclusion is about the actions that we do, right? And making sure our actions are addressing spirituality in the workplace, the spiritual inclusion, the emotional inclusion, the intellectual inclusion, the social inclusion, the comprehensive inclusion, and doing those things on that left-hand column there: access, attitude, choice, partnerships, etc. Belongingness is about how people feel. I can't control how you feel. I can control inclusion. Like when we talked about motivation in that first week, right? I can do all the right things in the world, but you decide as an employee whether or not you're motivated. I can do all the inclusive things in the world, but you decide as an employee that you feel like you belong or not. Belongingness is about perceptions and my feelings about what the organization is doing to make me feel like I am included. And if I feel like I belong, that is really where we want to focus. And so what we need to be doing to cultivate belongingness is to make sure that we are consistent in what we do, that we are doing all the things to engage employees to increase those feelings of belongingness. I can't directly do it, but I can create the context in which you can look at it and say, yeah, I belong here. This feels good. This feels right. This is where I want to be.